To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Happy Friday, everybody. We made it. We made it. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. My man Chris Candy in here from Mike Golic, Trey Wingo here with you. Chris, I have to believe, after what we saw last night in Game 5 between the Rockets and the Warriors, that suddenly everybody believes they can win the NBA championship. Now, I mean, look,
so you're saying it's a chance.
Let's just say that Houston and Golden State, even though they lost, as well as the two teams that were played tonight, Boston and Cleveland, maybe woke up this morning thinking,
anything's possible! We had to go with the KG drop.
That, of course, Kevin Garnett, after the Celtics won that championship with the big three there. But look, what did we all say? Well, you know, Golden State, they'll figure it out. They'll get it done. They'll find a way to right the ship. Hold on now. Hold on. They're not 48 minutes away from going home, and suddenly everybody thinks, hey, I think we went from maybe thinking two teams could win the NBA championship in the finals. I think now all four teams think they have a chance to win the NBA championship.
Absolutely. The Golden State Warriors certainly don't look right, and I didn't want to give the Houston Rockets credit defensively for what they did in Game 4. But I don't know how I can take the credit away from what they did last night because, again, in the critical stretches of the game, they were able to play lockdown defense, and the Golden State Warriors didn't look composed. They weren't themselves. So a part of that has to be attributed to the pressure that Mike D'Antoni's team put on the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to today as Golic and Wingo is presented by Progressive Insurance. Cars, homes, boats, motorcycles, RVs, and more at Progressive.com. A lot of guests for you coming up. We'll talk a lot about the game last night. We'll preview Game 6 tonight, rather, where the Cavs try to stave off elimination at home in Cleveland. Jeff Darlington will be here, our ESPN NFL reporter. Byron Scott, three-time NBA champion and former coach in the NBA, will join us. Eddie George.
Hey now.
And a former NFL player and now an actor who has appeared on Broadway, really made an unbelievable second act in his career. He'll stop by a little later. We're going to have the Marty Party from the Indianapolis 500, and Alvin Gentry, the Pelicans head coach, will join us as well. But it is going to be a busy, jam-packed Friday as people are getting ready for the holiday weekend. So let's get you started with what's trending, and we begin with what happened in H-Town last night. Eric Gordon came off the bench to score 24 points, and his steal on Golden State's last possession secured the 98-94 4-point win that gives the Rockets the 3-2 lead in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, Eric Gordon was huge last night. 17 second-half points, including 10 in the fourth quarter. The play that he made where he pump fake and got KD off his feet led to 3 easy free throws. That made it a 2-possession game, a 4-point lead. I think it was 80-84. And you saw that the Houston Rockets continued to maintain that lead down the stretch. But Eric Gordon and Chris Paul, that was the story in that game because they were the difference in the second half. On a night where the Houston Rockets struggled to shoot the basketball, those two players came through for them in the clutch.
H-Town, stand up!
Oh, I was just about to play it, man. You beat me to it.
H-Town, stand up!
I'm telling you, the Cavs need to hire Stephen A. as their hype man because ever since he went on this unbelievable rant, the Houston Rockets have won 2 games. Unbelievable. 2 games in a row against the Golden State Warriors. Again, they had not lost back-to-back postseason games since the 2016 NBA Finals when they were up 3-1 on the Cavs and then lost all 3 to lose that championship to Cleveland. But the other thing that's really interesting, and we talked about it yesterday, you know, belief is a powerful thing. The Warriors, with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry in the lineup, are 17-2 in the playoffs against every other team not named the Houston Rockets. They're now 2-3 against the Houston Rockets. And, oh, by the way, the Rockets took 2 out of 3 in the regular season. So you can say whatever you want. Houston now has the absolute faith that they have the secret sauce to take down the Golden State team that nobody else has.
And there's something to that. Like you said, having that belief in yourself and really the confidence to be able to perform and execute down the stretch, that's probably the most critical thing when it comes to postseason play.
Right.
And so you're looking at what the Houston Rockets have been able to do these last couple of games, and they think that they figured something out with the Golden State Warriors. They've demonstrated to themselves that they can actually go out there and they can beat those guys and they can dictate the pace of play. Because if you look at how the game is shaped, there's a lot of isolation ball, and that's much more the Houston Rockets style than the Golden State Warriors style. So, yeah, Houston should be feeling pretty good about themselves and what they've done these last couple of games. But we'll have to see what happens with that Chris Paul injury and whether he's going to be right for Game 6.
Well, that's the problem going forward. And for all the people saying, oh, well, Andre Iguodala, look, man, okay, you got your best player in James Harden who can't hit water if he fell out of a boat right now if it comes to three-point shooting. And as you mentioned, Chris Paul's got that injured hamstring. So they're doing it without their best player hitting anything, and their second best player may not be available and was out of the game down the stretch. Houston has shown they have bowed up and bowed up well.
H-Town, stand up!
Meanwhile, we've got a Game 6 tonight in the Eastern Conference in Cleveland. They return home for Game 6 against the Celtics, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Radio, as they are trying to stave off elimination against the Celtics. This might be LeBron James's final game as a Cleveland Cavalier, and it might be his final home game as a Cleveland Cavalier.
Yeah, I fully expect the Cleveland Cavaliers to win Game 6. This is going to go down to a Game 7. We talk about how the role players play better at home, and that has been true in this series. So when we see this two teams going back and forth, it'd be interesting to see what we get from the guys from the Cleveland Cavaliers outside of LeBron James and Kevin Love. Those guys have got to come to the party. They've got to play well, but I think the most important part of this, because I'm already assuming that they're going to win Game 6, they've got to be able to take what they do tonight back into TD Garden when they play in Game 7.
Yeah, I think we'll see I think you get the full LeBron force tonight. Mm-hmm. And then what we always see with the role players in the playoff series, they always play better at home.
Yes.
Now, and they don't have to play great. They just kind of have to play.
Yeah.
Remember, in the loss in Boston in Game 5, for the fifth time this postseason, LeBron himself outscored the other four starters. If that happens tonight, we're not seeing a Game 7.
No, we're not seeing a Game 7, but I don't think that'll happen tonight, Trey. Like, I fully anticipate those guys being able to feed off the energy from the crowd in Cleveland, and that's going to be the difference in terms of them being able to perform. But again, I want those guys to play well and figure out a formula for success. We keep talking about the Houston Rockets having a formula against Golden State. I need those role players for the Cavs to figure out the formula and what it's going to take to be able to beat the Boston Celtics in TD Garden. That's the most important thing.
Right. And if you're one of those people who, air quotes, believes in biorhythms and disengagement and interest, I have to believe what happened last night in Houston got LeBron's interest way up. Now, I don't buy into that, but if that's the theory you're going down, I think this will be shown tonight, right?
Agreed. Completely agree. We'll see what happens.
We'll see if the rest of the Cavs, though, can do what they need to do. Can the rest of the Cavs make the switch tonight? Make the Switch, brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Staying in the NBA, LeBron James and James Harden were unanimously voted All-NBA First Team. It was announced Thursday, with James earning the nod for a record 12th time in his 15-year career. What the hell happened in those other 3 years? He passed Kobe Bryant and Karl Malone for the most All-NBA First Team selections. Joining them on the squad, Kevin Durant, New Orleans' Anthony Davis, and Portland's Damian Lillard, the All-NBA First Team, as voted on by the media.
LeBron James should be the MVP every single year, right?
Preach!
I mean, there's no player that means more to his team than LeBron James. I mean, there's no player that means more to the league than LeBron James. So when you start talking about the most valuable player, that's LBJ. Now, the most outstanding season, that could be James Harden. And I think that's where you have to make that distinction. My co-host, Rick DiPietro, at 98.7
He's
in
a
New York,
feisty little nugget.
Feisty little nugget. You say he's taking too much vulcanized rubber to the head. He always says that they have to have two awards. It should be most outstanding player, and then it's the MVP.
Like the NFL does.
Exactly.
They do the best offensive player and all that kind of stuff, and then they have the MVP. Look, and I get it. It's a regular season award. But this playoff run is telling you why LeBron James is the most valuable player over James Harden. Mm-hmm. I mean, James Harden had one of those awful shooting nights in one of the first rounds of the playoffs, and the Rockets won by 20. He's missed his last 23 pointers,
including 0 for 11 last night,
and they've won 2 games in a row. Now, imagine if LeBron went 0 for 20 on 3-pointers over 2 games. The Cavs would lose by 700 points. Okay, so we can say whatever you want about the season James Harden had, and he had a fabulous season. Know this, and you know it in your soul whether you want to admit it or not. Deep down in the places where you don't talk about and you don't tell people at night, you know LeBron James is the MVP, and it ain't even close. By the way, in the other 3 years that he didn't make first-team All-NBA, he finished second-team twice. In his rookie season, he wasn't on any of the 3 All-NBA teams. So we continue. Mike Trout and Albert Pujols each hit solo home runs for the Angels last night. And Shohei Ohtani. I want you to Shohei the way. I'm sure his biggest accomplishment since coming over and playing in America is the fact that he has a horrible drop on this show named after him. Ohtani doubled twice, and the Angels beat the Toronto Blue Jays 8-1. Angels begin a 3-game series against the Yankees tonight in the Bronx. And Ohtani had been scheduled to pitch against fellow Japanese right-hander Masahiro Tanaka on Sunday, but Mike Scioscia announced yesterday, that they're pushing back his next start.
Well, yeah, that's disappointing not to be able to see him square off against a team that was in on trying to get him to come over from Japan. But if you like home runs, then you're going to like this 3-game set that the Angels and the Yankees are going to put together this weekend. I mean, the Angels are 5th with 64 home runs, and the Yankees are by far and away the best team at hitting the long ball with 79 home runs. So it'll be a fun series to watch. Got Luis Severino on the mound, so hopefully there won't be a lot of home runs for the Angels tonight.
Well,
because I'm a Yankees fan.
Well, I understand. You're a guy from the Bronx.
Yeah, Co-op City, born and raised.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it'll be really fun to see this. It is a disappointment on the stage of Yankee Stadium. You won't see Ohtani there. But Ohtani has been nothing but living up to the hype. It's unbelievable, especially after the spring that we saw out of him, that he's been able to pitch the way he's been able to pitch. The stroke has always been there. Just he will not be on the mound this weekend at Yankee Stadium. And, of course, it's Memorial Day weekend, and it's one of the great sporting traditions in this country. Memorial Day weekend means Sunday is the 102nd running of the Indy 500. Ed Carpenter will be the pole sitter and lead the 33-driver field to the green flag. Most of the attention will be on a couple of rows back, where Helio Castroneves is going for his 4th Indy 500 win, which would tie 3 other people with the most, and Danica Patrick competing in her final race.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's one of the spectacles of sports, and the sports world will be on Indianapolis this weekend. Everybody wants to see how this is going to work out, but I'm excited about it. Everybody always talks about how big of a deal this is for racing, and so it'll be great to be able to see this weekend. Looking forward to it.
Yep. So, again, the race is on ABC, and the Watch ESPN app. It starts at 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. Okay, that is what's trending. Golic and Wingo. Chris Candy in for Mike Golic. Trey Wingo here with you, reminding the 30 for 30 podcasts have returned. Subscribe to 30 for 30 podcasts right now on the Listen tab of the ESPN app or in the Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Try it for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/30. So, we have the Golden State Warriors in a position where they have not been in since the 2016 season, a game away from elimination. And for the first time since the 2016 postseason, they have lost back-to-back games, and it's because the Houston Rockets have decided to follow the advice of Stephen A. Smith.
H-Town, stand up!
But perhaps most importantly is they are finding – I think what we're seeing from Houston right now is the one thing that we were concerned about going into this series. Do they have enough grit? Do they have enough do they have enough to get by when things aren't going well? As we said, James Harden, if he were skydiving, he would miss Earth. Okay, that's how off his shot is right now.
Yeah.
And they have still won back-to-back games, which means Mike D'Antoni is doing a great job of understanding exactly what happens. And I think he's done an amazing job with his team. I think he said all the right things at all the right moments, especially after game 1. We're like, I admit it, I bought into it as soon as the Warriors went down there in game 1, where the Rockets had fought all this way to get game 7 at their place and they won by double digits. I was like, no, man, this thing is pretty much going to play out the way we thought it did. But Mike D'Antoni said all the right things, and now this team is still in a position to have that game 7 if they need it to close out the Warriors.
Yeah, I think game 2 was big for the Houston Rockets, being able to have the confidence to go out there and make those plays and beat the Golden State Warriors. And so when you have that, you're able to pull from those different experiences in the games earlier in the series. And I think that Houston has finally figured out a way to attack the Golden State Warriors defense and all of the switches that they do to get the matchups that they're looking for on the offensive side, and then being able to isolate. You saw the matchups that they created in the fourth quarter, being able to get Chris Paul on Joe Looney. Those types of things, being able to consistently do that throughout the game, it made it tough on the Golden State Warriors. And so I like what the Houston Rockets are doing. I'm sure that Mike D'Antoni is pleased with what they're doing. Now, they're going to face a different type of Golden State Warriors team going back in Game 6 because it's an elimination game for them. So they've got to be ready for Golden State's best punch. And when you look at what Mike D'Antoni has done the last couple of games, only having 7 guys in his rotation, now with Chris Paul having that injury, you wonder how it's going to look in terms of who he's going to have in and out of the lineup. How is he going to spell the guys that Eric Gordon, James Harden, those types of players is Eric Gordon going to be in the starting lineup, or are they going to bring him off the bench? To me, I think he's too valuable off the bench to put him in the starting lineup if Chris Paul can't go. So there's some moving parts that Mike D'Antoni has to figure out. You wonder if Game 5 for the Rockets was a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, listen. Oh, did you just play a Pyrrhic victory card?
I did. I had to play that.
Brettymology. We got Pyrrhic victory coming out from Chris Canty. We need to go deeper dive into that. But to your point about that, D'Antoni, who said all the right things this entire postseason, knows exactly what's in store if they're going to try and go into Oracle and take what the Warriors have.
If you watch championship games or series and stuff, other than the blowouts because you get a team off, they were heavyweight fighters punching it out. And they're not going to let you win on points. You got to knock them out. And I thought our guys just hung in there. They found a way. It won't go down as a classic, oh, look at all this greatness. But it should go down as a hard-fought win. And that's kind of where we are and where we'll be.
And that's sort of the way this series has played out. Outside of like the third quarter in Game 4, where the Warriors went out and just dominated.
You mean that 18-3 run that he went on?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
That entire quarter, 34-17, where they outscored him in that third quarter, it hasn't been beautiful, esoteric basketball. It's been just sort of whatever it takes, whatever to get it done. And that's the thing that I respect most about this Houston team is they're willing to muck it up. They're willing to play not dirty, but
goon the game up.
Not goon the game up, but do whatever is necessary to scrap out a win. I like that about this team.
And this team has taken on a little bit of Chris Paul's personality. That's what it feels like because he's always been one of those chippy type of players. And that definitely hasn't been James Harden's calling card, and especially in the postseason. So looking at those guys doing exactly what it takes to be able to dictate the terms that the game is going to be played on, I think that's a huge thing for the Houston Rockets because they can't beat the Golden State Warriors at their own game. They can't beat Golden State in terms of trying to pass the ball around. They've got to go iso ball. They've tried to slow the pace down a little bit. They've been better defensively. So if they can continue on that track, then I think this team gives themselves a good chance when they get back to the Toyota Center for Game 7. I'm assuming that the Golden State Warriors are going to win Game 6.
Right.
Because this is too good of a team to lose 3 straight games to the Houston Rockets. So they're going to figure it out, and they're going to be able to do something. But I think this is going to be big in terms of what's going to happen with Chris Paul. Is he going to be healthy? And if he's not, how is Mike D'Antoni going to juggle his lineup?
Well, to that point, again, if you didn't stay up and watch the entire game, Chris Paul left late in that game. He's had the sore foot, and then he was grabbing the hamstring, and Mike D'Antoni addressed the issue of Chris Paul's health after the win.
He'll be evaluated tomorrow, but obviously you saw him limp off, and he's a tough guy. So they'll do whatever they can do. If he's there, great. Good for him. If he isn't, we have enough guys, and it's time for somebody else to step up. We got plenty of guys over there that will have some fresh legs, that's for sure. So we'll be all right. But we just got to continue what we're doing, and then we'll find that way.
Again, that's what I love about what he says there. We got a lot of guys that have fresh legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players last night, DNP, coach's decision. Okay, and again, the rotation, they played 7, but Green only played 16. Everyone else, Gordon 36, Harden 39, Paul 38, Capella 27, Tucker 42, Trevor Ariza 42. So they have been relying heavily on 6 guys. Now
they're going to ride till the wheels fall off with those guys.
Exactly, but they may have to ride with 5 guys heavy minutes and then 6 or 7 other guys playing 7 or 8 minutes in that contest. But if they're going to win and if they're going to try and find a way to close them out, James Harden's going to have to show up. Because James Harden, he got 19 points last night, 0 of 11 from 3, 5 of 21 from the floor. He's missed his last 23s over the last 2 games, and our Tim McMahon asked James Harden about his 3-point shooting issues. And if you listen closely, he also got a nice little shot in there as well.
James, obviously you're not shooting the 3 ball the way you usually do. Is there anything
I'm not?
I'm being kind. Anything you feel?
Who cares? Nah.
Nothing mechanical or anything?
Nothing. I'm just missing shots. But we're winning, and I'm trying to compete on the defensive end and do other things to, help my team win. But if we got a guy like Eric Gordon making shots, and being aggressive, who cares?
While I think it's wonderful that James Harden is trying to contribute on the defensive end of the game, if you're relying on James Harden's defense to help you win, that ain't going to happen, okay? What James Harden needs to play like the presumptive MVP he's going to be. And again, imagine if this was LeBron James, okay? And he went 0 for 11 from 3, 5 of 21. And I know it's a regular season award. I get that. But these playoffs are telling you why LeBron James is the MVP. It's not James Harden. It's going to be, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah, the playoff performance is going to be the lasting impression on fans in terms of what that player's season was all about. So if you choke in the conference finals and your team has been relying on you the entire time, then it's hard to believe that you're an MVP caliber player. That's what everybody's going to be looking at. But as far as James Harden and what he needs to do offensively for this team, I think he recognized in the second half when his shot wasn't falling that it was probably in his best interest to try to push the ball, try to drive, get to the basket, and get to the free throw line.
Chris Canty, hold on a minute. We have breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Let's go to researcher Brett. Brett, give us more on Pyrrhic victory.
Well, a Pyrrhic victory, which, by the way, Chris, you used perfectly.
Yeah, it's Wahoo, baby.
A victory in which you suffer great casualties. The origin is from King Pyrrhus of Epirus. I'm probably going to mispronounce all these words. The ancient Greece.
Clock integrity. Get it out in 20 seconds.
He suffered great casualties against the Romans in the Battle of Heraclea in 280 BC, and he said afterwards that another such victory would undo him.
All right, congratulations. So you used it perfectly, and because of their Pyrrhic victory, you know what happened?
H-Town, stand up!
They stood up, and they stood tall. Oh, see, Brettomology yesterday and a little bonus appearance today.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Chris, it's time to little Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And we're straight talking about the Golden State Warriors. All regular season long, when they were just sort of going through the motions and the Houston Rockets were scrapping to do whatever they could to get the number one overall seed, which would thus guarantee them home court in a Game 7 situation, people were like, they'll figure it out. Golden State will be fine. They'll get things going. They'll get it done. And as long as everybody's healthy, they're the team to beat. And that still may be the case. But they're also one game away from not having a chance to defend their title as they're down 3-2 in the Western Conference Finals. And yes, Andre Iguodala has been injured. And yes, Klay Thompson has been limping along. But you know what? Steph Curry has been out there. Kevin Durant has been out there. Draymond Green has been out there. They have tons of players. And so far, their best players have been bested by not even the Rockets' best players at times. Okay? Because James Harden has been really pretty much of a no-show the last 2 games, and they found a way to win. So where are we right now with Golden State? I can tell you exactly where Steve Kerr is, extremely confident.
I feel great about where we are right now. And that may sound crazy, but I feel it. I know exactly what I'm seeing out there, and we defended them beautifully tonight. We got everything we needed. Just too many turnovers, too many reaches. And if we settle down a little bit, we're going to be in really good shape.
It is interesting he brings up the turnovers because the Cavs had a bunch of turnovers in Boston, 15. The Warriors had 16 last night in Houston. My question to you is, do you feel as great about the Warriors? And by the way, Steve Kerr saying exactly what he should be saying.
Yes. Because
he knows his team needs to hear it right now. Mm-hmm. Something has happened to them that hasn't happened in the last 2 postseasons. They've lost back-to-back games. So he's using, once again, coach speak through the media to talk to his players because he knows that's what they're going to hear more than what he tells them because that's going to be on every platform out there, sound bites like that. So he's confident. Are you as confident as he is right now?
Well, I saw some things that were different in Game 5 than I did in Game 4. The Golden State Warriors looked like on offense they had a conscious effort to try to move the ball more, and I think that's more their style. They've got to get back toward that because over the course of this series, they're averaging 58 fewer passes per game, and then 16 more isolation plays per game. So when you start talking about that type of offense, that's not who the Golden State Warriors are. It's a team that led the league in assists per game with 29. So they've got to get back to sharing the basketball to create those open looks and start to get some guys going offensively outside of Steph Curry and what we've seen from Kevin Durant. I thought that Steve Kerr tried to make an adjustment in putting Kevin Durant in the post more, and he talked about that being a good option for his team offensively. But it all comes down to composure and execution in critical moments for me with the Golden State Warriors, and you heard a couple of the players talking about that after the game. They got to be composed, and right now the Houston Rockets seem like the team that's had the more experience in this type of environment, in this type of series, and it's just uncharacteristic of the Golden State Warriors.
So the Golden State Warriors are a game away from elimination, the place they have not been since Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals. Steve Kerr says he's confident, and he also knows his team knows how to respond in these situations.
I think they're sitting in there and they're angry, as they should be. You know, they're competitors. I like what you said. This is the worst situation we've been in since Kevin's been here, and we're 2 wins from making the NBA Finals. That's a pretty good worst situation to be in. So we're right there. We found some things tonight that worked for us. I'm extremely confident that we're going to take care of business. We just got to be a little sharper.
Again, I think what he's saying is brilliant because he's right. They're in a desperate situation. But again, if my desperate situation is with my lineup 2 games away from being in the NBA Finals, you got to feel good about things. But again, I want to point out something that shows how selective some of us in this business tend to be about how we perceive things. Okay. Kevin Durant is clearly the best player for the Golden State Warriors, right?
Yes.
He surpassed Steph Curry in that situation. He is the best player on the best team, supposedly, in the NBA this season. He did not take a single shot in Game 4, over the final 3.5 minutes at home, right?
Yeah.
Did not take a single shot. Last night, he was 0 for 4 in the fourth quarter. Imagine if this was LeBron James. If this was LeBron James, who did not take a single shot in a loss at home over the final 3.5 minutes. And then imagine if this was LeBron James, clearly the best player on his team, hashtag maybe the only player, who went 0 for 4 in the fourth quarter. People would be freaking out about how he's not getting it done. And people aren't saying that about Kevin Durant. Why is that?
Well, it's a different standard with LeBron James because everybody recognizes he's the best player in the world. And so I think people look at it through that lens. But as far as Kevin Durant is concerned, I think he was probably a little more passive as the game went on. And you could hear Steve Kerr telling him during the timeout when he was mic'd up saying, trust your teammates. Continue to be aggressive on the offensive end, but trust your teammates to make the plays when they're there. And I think Kevin Durant got caught in this in-between space where he didn't know when he should be aggressive and force the issue on offense versus deferring to his teammates and trying to get them looks. So I think they've got to figure that part of it out because Houston Rockets have definitely thrown them off their game because we're not accustomed to seeing Houston play this type of defense.
Right. Or defense.
Or period. Yeah.
Defense specifically.
The running joke is Mike D'Antoni. Take the D out.
Exactly. So you have to give Houston a lot of credit. But I am really curious about what's going on because what do we always say about the best player on a really good team? Hey, when the chips are down, that guy should take over the game. And it goes back to what happened in Game 4 at Oracle when he passed up that look with 12.5 seconds left. And then, of course, he goes 0 for 4. And when you hear he's caught in that in-between space, as you just said, hey, man, we're not paying you to be caught in the in-between space. We're paying you to be the guy that gets us out of this in-between space. And while not a lot of people have called out Kevin Durant on this, we have to give props to one who did, and that is our teammate, our guy, Stephen A. Smith.
He is not showing up over the last 2 games. You departed from Oklahoma City to show up in Golden State. For a moment like this, if you think about it, this is the first adverse circumstance he has faced, especially with Steph Curry not on his A game because they've turned him into a 2-point shooter. You're expecting the 6'11", 7'6" wingspan of Kevin Durant to step up and take advantage of every mismatch that's available. And somehow, some way, over the last 2 games, he has struggled when it is counted. I don't care about the numbers. I'm talking about when it counts. That's a problem that better be alleviated because, again, the reigning defending NBA champions are 48 minutes away from getting knocked off and going home.
And I think Stephen A. Smith has absolutely nailed this. Absolutely nailed it. Listen, Kevin Durant was the best player in the finals last year. He took over games and made sure, hey, I came here to get a ring. I'm going to get my ring.
Yep.
He did whatever it took. That guy needs to show up now. That guy needs to be the guy at Oracle that says, hey, no way, we're not taking this away from us. I know Steph is not doing the things he normally do because the Houston defense has done a great job of making him really, as Stephen A. said, a 2-point shooter, not a 3-point shooter. Kevin Durant has to be the Slim Reaper. That's who he has to be. He has to be the guy that says, this is on me, follow my lead. He has to show up in Game 6.
The ball in Kevin Durant's hands with the game on the line is always a good option. He's the best scorer in the NBA. No player has more tools in the toolbox offensively than Kevin Durant. And so if you get him the ball down the stretch, the defense has one or two options. Either they're going to let him go to work and let him try to score and dominate, which is ridiculous because every team, every player that you throw at him, it's going to be a mismatch. It doesn't matter who it is. He's a 7-footer that has one of the best jump shots in the league. So when you start looking at trying to make the critical plays down the stretch offensively, it's got to be KD. It's got to be him taking over that in the situation.
He knows it, and we'll see if he can deliver on Saturday.
Washing my nose, oh yeah.
I'm a shower curtain, and I do one thing, keep water from leaking everywhere. So you see why I feel useless compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could Geico save you money, but they've been around for over 75 years. And they give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or on the Geico app. And they've got a 97% customer satisfaction rating. They do all this while I have to listen to this chucklehead. Oh, good, he stopped.
Washing my toes.
Oh, great, an encore.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Golic and Wingo Leadership Retreat.
I can't believe we're actually going to let this happen. Mm-hmm. This is actually happening, as they said in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. We are actually going to let this happen. But here it goes. Guys, today is your last chance. Your last chance to join us at the Pinehurst Resort for the Golic and Wingo Offsite All Hands Town Hall Leadership Retreat Strategy Session Golf Tournament. Really, it's just a scam to play golf. And we are bringing 4 winners with us. 4 winners, including Scott Van Pelt. I did not know that he was trying to get in.
Didn't know it.
And each one of those 4 winners gets to bring 2 friends with them. So really, we are paving the way for 12 people to be there with us. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be amazing. So here's what you got to do. This is the last day to get your submissions in to join us. You get 1 submission, 1, via Twitter. Pictures, videos, encouraged. Here's how you enter. You must be following us at Golic and Wingo. You must tag us in the tweet, and you must use the hashtag Golf with GW Contest. And here's what you get. It's June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at Pinehurst. Flights, premium accommodations, meals, swag, and golf is all included. We will be playing Pinehurst number 2, one of the, if not the most vaunted golf courses in America. I know your family's from North Carolina,
Absolutely.
right?
I haven't played the course, though.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get in on this trip, but I realize you don't have enough juice, so I'm going to have to shoot my submission during the next break.
Get it in. Come on. Put it on the Twitter feed. Pinehurst number 2 is fantastic. We're going to be playing that course. We're also going to be playing the short course, the Cradle, a par 3 9-hole course, which is just amazing. But Pinehurst number 2, there have been more championship tournaments there than any other course in the country. Pinehurst Resort is
Okay. Let's get it back on track here. Did you guys know you're doing a whodunit murder mystery for dinner? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does. And the murder mystery is who's going to get murdered by the Greens at Pinehurst number 2.
Pretty much.
Because if you
I don't think that's a mystery. That's going to be everybody.
That's going to be the field. If you ever have issues with chipping, just don't bother. Yeah. Just use your hand wedge or your foot wedge, okay? And by the way, one really interesting little caveat for this trip. By the way, the folks at Pinehurst have stepped up great. As soon as we had this conversation, they were like, come here, play it here. They did that on their Twitter feed, and they put something out there yesterday on their Twitter account for the contest, which is amazing. A lot of people remember the 1999 U.S. Open, won by Payne Stewart when he beat Phil Mickelson for his second U.S. Open, the last of his 3 majors of his career. He made a 15-foot par putt on 18 to avoid a playoff and win the U.S. Open. They are setting up the pin for when we play on that Friday, the 22nd, in the exact same location as where Payne Stewart was when he made that putt. So again,
that's really cool.
It's very cool. You get to come out there and have your chance on 18 to make the same putt that Payne Stewart made to win that championship. So again, today is your last day, your last chance. Don't blow it. Get in there. Send us your submissions and let us know why you think you should come play with us at Pinehurst. By the way, our Sports Center is brought to you by Gum Out. Gum Out Regain Complete Fuel System Cleaner safely removes carbon deposits to help restore engine's performance and maximize fuel economy. Try Gum Out Regain today at AutoZone. Buy one, get one free instantly for a limited time. Gum Out. Science in, performance out. Okay, so as we are continuing here, getting forward to what we think will be a fantastic game tonight, my question for you is this. Are you betting on both series ending in Game 6, or do you think at this point right now both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals are going 7? I
think both of them are going Game 7. I don't see any way that the Golden State Warriors don't respond to losing back-to-back games and actually win Game 6. So I have to see them winning Game 6 and pushing it back to the Toyota Center for Game 7. And then with the Boston Celtics and the Cavs series, I'm looking at this situation and saying LeBron James has always done what we expect LeBron James to do in the postseason. It's just a matter of his supporting cast being able to come along and play and be complimentary to him. They haven't done it on the road, but they've done it at home. They've only lost one home game this postseason.
And that was their first home game.
That was the first home game, and that was a tough series against the Pacers. So I definitely look for them to respond to that loss that they just had in TD Garden. So I'm looking for both series to go Game 7.
All right, Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever. But let me ask you this, okay? We're talking about a quote. Let's get a quote here.
All right.
33.5 points. That is the average for LeBron James when he's facing elimination. That's the best in the history of the NBA. So if I set the bar at 35 for LeBron, you taking the over or the under?
I'm taking the over. I think he realizes he's got to do more offensively with this supporting cast than ever before. He wants to be one of those players that facilitates and gets other guys involved, but he's realizing that he has to be more selfish because the other guys offensively leave a lot to be desired from the Cavs. J.R. Smith is streaky, and outside of Kevin Love and Kyle Korver, there aren't a whole lot of guys that have been consistent from the perimeter. So I think LeBron James is realizing he's got to score more points.
Yeah. I may put the over under at 40. I think
it's one of those.
Yeah, I think he may go off on one of those 40-point games because look,
40-point triple double.
Yeah, well, he's got more of those than anybody else in NBA playoff history. He's got 3. I think at this point, LeBron knows if I'm going down, I'm going down with me doing everything I possibly can because it might be his last game in Cleveland and it might be his last game as a Cav. Coming up, is it more likely that the Cavs and Warriors both make the finals or that they both miss the finals? That's ahead. Stay with us. Golic and Wingo on a
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Trying to get you in that Friday feeling on a holiday weekend here on Golic and Wingo. Glad you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Chris Candy in for Mike Golic, Trey Wingo here. You, of course, know that's My Block by Scarface, and songs like that are featured on our Amazon Music playlist. Come on, one of the best. The simplest way to listen to the music you love. New customers, start your 30-day free trial at AmazonMusic.com. Renews automatically. Cancel anytime.
So we're just going to have an H-Town theme show now.
Let's go. Let's get it going. Come on. Well,
right.
What, did you say H-Town?
H-Town.
Is that what you said?
H-Town, stand up.
And H-Town stood up. And now they have, of course, the Warriors on the brink of elimination. But there is another playoff game tonight, and that'll be Game 6, which could be an elimination game for LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers as they host the Boston Celtics. We'll get a deep dive into that in just a minute. But first, we'll start with what's trending and an interesting situation happening in baseball. The Rays are going to start a reliever throughout the Orioles series this weekend. Reliever Sergio Romo, is scheduled to start tonight and Sunday against Baltimore. And then another reliever set to face the Orioles on Saturday. It'll be the first time the Rays start relievers in all 3 games of a series after using Romo, the veteran reliever, in 2 games last week against the Angels. Essentially, hey, let's get through the first couple of innings with the top of the order, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, just get me through the lineup one time, and then we're just going to rotate and go to the bullpen. First of all, let me start by saying this. I want to thank the Tampa Bay Rays because, as you know, Trey, I'm a Yankees fan.
Correct.
And they disposed of the Boston Red Sox last night. They got to Rick Porcello early, so I really appreciate that. But coming into this season, this was one of those teams that was going to take an unconventional approach to their starting pitching rotation. They said they wanted to go with 4 starters, and on that fifth day, they were going to have a bullpen type of day. Now, it hasn't exactly worked out like that, but I think this is one of those organizations that's trying to be forward-thinking and try new approaches to trying to get outs and get through the lineup. The whole name of the game is get 27 outs.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how you get them, just try to get them. With all the pitching changes and teams relying on their bullpens as much as they do these days, I think the Tampa Bay Rays are just taking a different approach at it, and it's starting to work out for them because they're not nearly as bad as everybody thought they'd be.
I was about to say, they're not making the playoffs in the East with the Yankees and the Red Sox. That's a certain. But they're only 2 games under 500. And look, it's always going to be this way with the Rays. They've got to find different ways to find success because you're not going to get a bunch of money to get a bunch of free agents to go down there and get it done. So I tip my cap to him a little bit. Zach Crawford, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Cozart, sorry. Zach Cozart has no issue with this whatsoever. He can't stand it. He says it's bad for Major League Baseball, bad for the sport, and he says it's just a way to avoid paying starting pitching. That may be true, but if you're Tampa, that's what you've got to do.
Well, what's the most fragile thing in baseball?
Pitching.
It's starting pitching.
Yep.
That's why teams are starting to go with these relievers. And you see with all the pitching changes, I think they're averaging over 6 pitching changes between the both teams every single game. So if you're talking about rotating pitchers that much, then it doesn't make sense to put $20-30 million a year unless you're talking about a guy like Clayton Kershaw or Max Scherzer. But how many
Justin Verlander.
But how many pitchers are horses like those guys?
Right, not many. And that's the thing we could have another discussion on. When are we going to see the next 300-win pitcher in Major League Baseball? Maybe never.
Yeah.
The way things are shaping up right now. Staying in baseball, Mike Trout and Albert Pujols each hit solo home runs. Shohei Ohtani, our guy.
I want you to Shohei the way.
Doubled twice as the Angels beat the Toronto Blue Jays 8-1. The Angels now begin a 3-game series against the Yankees tonight in the Bronx, and Ohtani had been scheduled to pitch against fellow Japanese right-hander Masahiro Tanaka on Sunday for the Yankees, but Mike Scioscia, the manager of the Angels, announced yesterday they'll be pushing back his start. Michael Kay was in here from ESPN 98.7 New York yesterday, and he was crushed by this. Crushed.
Yeah, it's one of those things you wanted to see because the Yankees were in pursuit of Shohei Ohtani, wanted him to come in and be one of those top-of-the-rotation starting pitchers. But seeing him do it not only at the mound but at the plate, that's impressive. I mean, just somebody that's capable of that, it's unprecedented. But when you look at this 3-game set that they have in Yankee Stadium this weekend, I'm really looking forward to it because, as they always say, people fall in love with the long ball. Both of these teams hit a whole lot of home runs, so it'll be fun to watch.
Listen, as a broadcaster or a radio guy, you're upset that Ohtani's not there. But as a Yankee fan, you're secretly happy.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's more about my fandom at this point than it is about trying to talk about the storyline with Ohtani pitching against this club because I want to see the Yankees win a World Series. That's the expectation. They got the Game 7 of the ALCS last year. Now you want to see them take that next step.
Well, and it's a step they've taken more often than any other team in
27 times,
history.
Baby. Let's go.
And Sunday is the 102nd running of the Indy 500, while Ed Carpenter will lead the 33-driver field to the green flag after taking the pole position. Nothing against Ed Carpenter. I think most people are curious about what's going to happen a couple rows back. Danica Patrick in her last race, and Helio Castroneves tries one more time to get his 4th Indy 500 crown, which would tie 3 other drivers with the most in the sport's history.
All I want to know is Aaron Rodgers going to be there? Because you know that's his girl, Daddy. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be in the building?
He's going to be there.
That's what I want to know. That's my guy, Aaron Rodgers.
I'm glad you got to the real important subject
Absolutely.
matter.
Absolutely.
Again, the greatest spectacle in racing begins on ABC and the Watch ESPN app. It starts at 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. Golic and Wingo here with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Chris Canty in for Mike Golic as we are getting set for what might be the last game of LeBron James's career in Cleveland, and it might also be the last game in Cleveland of LeBron James's career. So as we look forward to tonight, what do you expect to see? Let's start it this way. I think we know what we expect out of LeBron James. We had the stat in SportsCenter, which is amazing. In games where he's facing elimination, he averages 33.5 points. That's the best in the history of the NBA playoffs. Yet people say he isn't clutch. So as
or he's not engaged, right?
Exactly.
That's
or
the other one.
Body biorhythms, disengagement, whatever. So let's assume that's going to happen tonight.
Okay.
For LeBron James. What do we assume is going to happen for the Boston Celtics? Because they have been completely different on the road as opposed to at home. Now, I get it. It was a 9-point game that they lost last time in Cleveland, but it really wasn't as close as the score indicated. They got to within 7 in the fourth quarter, and then it was pulling away time, and they made a couple late to make it look closer than it actually was. Now, they didn't get blown out like they did in Game 3, which was a disaster. But what do we really expect from the youngest team in the NBA? People forget that. by average age, the Celtics are the youngest team in the NBA. What do we expect from those young guys on the road when they're trying to do basically close out the guy who is the toughest guy to close out?
Well, I think they'll play well defensively, and Brad Stevens talked about it at the beginning of this series. They know they can't stop LeBron James, but they want to make it as hard as possible for as long as possible. So I think they'll continue with that. I'm more concerned about what it's going to look like on the offense for them. Who's going to be able to score buckets? Right. Because you expect that role players and the young guys play better at home than they do on the road, and that's exactly what we've seen from the Celtics throughout the postseason. It's just not the same team. So when you start talking about what happens in terms of who's going to be consistently scoring buckets for them, you have to look to your all-star caliber players, but you really only have one in Al Horford. The other guys, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they have potential down the road, but they're not there yet. So it's just, I'm interested to see how those guys respond to this environment, because you know it's going to be a raucous crowd for Game 6 in Cleveland. And so looking at this, I always say that LeBron James is going to be the constant. It's just a matter of what the other players are going to do outside of he and Kevin Love, and I think those guys will play better in Cleveland.
Well, look, so the question then becomes, which is a likelier scenario? The Cavs and Warriors both make the finals, or the Cavs and Warriors both miss the NBA Finals?
I think it's the Cavs and Warriors making the finals, and we see another installment to the trilogy. So, I mean,
they're both down 3-2.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm looking at the Cavs series and seeing if both teams hold serve, then it's going to go to Game 7 at TD Garden. And if you're giving me a Game 7, a one-game elimination, I'm going to take the best player in the world. And I just think that LeBron James somehow, some way will will his team to win, just like I expect after Game 6 in Golden State. When they go to Game 7 down in the Toyota Center, the second best player in the world in Kevin Durant is going to find a way for his team to win.
So you're going out on that limb that not only do we see both of them there, more likely than we see neither of them there, you're also picking the road teams each to win in Game 7. Brett.
And I'm picking both teams that lost Game 5.
Exactly.
And we talked about how important Game 5 is.
Brett, what are the numbers? Because usually if you win Game 5, I think it's an 83% chance to win the series. So what are the odds of a Game 7 win by the road team? And maybe we'll look this up more importantly, the odds that both road teams might win a Game 7. Is there some way to quantify that?
There is a way to quantify it. I'm going to need a couple minutes, but I'll get back to you.
Yeah, that's Researcher Brett, ladies and gentlemen. He's not just a wordsmith. He's not just Brettomology. He will also stack numbers more than anything else. I mean, because that
put that algorithm.
Yeah,
get that. Yeah,
but that's
we're
what
talking about. Biorhythms. Might as well get the algorithm in it.
And the rhythm is going to get you eventually. By the way, both conference finals haven't gone to a Game 7 since 1979. So we're talking about a long, long time ago. So that would be a really interesting thing if that plays out. Focusing more as we're here on Golic and Wingo with Chris Canty this morning on the Friday. Glad you're with us as we're getting set for the start of a holiday weekend. Let's look ahead to tonight's game specifically. Okay, I think we all agree LeBron's going to go off, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume that happens. Let's assume LeBron has a 35-12-7 game, and I think that's highly likely. The next best Cavalier, if they're going to win, has to be who?
I'm going to say it has to be J.R. Smith. And we keep talking about how he's so streaky as a player. He's got to be a better shooter from the perimeter. When he gets those open looks, and I'm assuming that he will because LeBron will be aggressive and try to dictate on the offensive end. When LeBron finds him in those spots, he's got to be able to knock down those jump shots. And if he can't do it, then the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be in trouble.
Right.
We see that Kyle Korver can do that. That's why the Boston Celtics don't help off of Kyle Korver. We know that Kevin Love can be a knockdown shooter when he has the opportunity. Those other guys have got to come along. LeBron James wants to space the floor. He's going to take advantage on one-on-one matchups. But when he gets doubled, those other guys have got to step up and knock down shots from the perimeter. If they don't, the Cleveland Cavaliers aren't going to be able to win.
It's really amazing. We're talking about a chance for him to go to his 8th straight, LeBron James, take his teams to an 8th straight NBA Finals. Again, they've got to win 2 games, including a road game in Boston in Game 7 to get there. And again, the Celtics have won 10 straight home playoff games. That is the longest such streak that we've ever seen in one postseason. So as we continue here in Golic and Wingo, again, reminding you that every single game throughout the rest of the NBA playoffs are on ESPN Radio, including the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals. Tune into Game 6 tomorrow night for the Western Conference Finals as Durant and the Warriors host the Rockets. Presented by Indeed, coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. We'll see what happens in Game 6 because it's an elimination game because you know what happened?
H-Town, stand up!
They stood up. They stood up tall. to the issue of what went on with the Golden State Warriors. And I think the most amazing thing to me, Chris, about the win was not that they got it, but how they got it. Again, the presumptive MVP, James Harden, was 0 for 11 from 3, has missed his last 20 3-pointers. Chris Paul was not on the floor for the final sequence because of that hamstring injury, and somehow, some way, despite really playing only 6 players, they found a way to get it done. That, to me, impressed me more than the actual win. It was the formula that they used to get the win, which was most unexpected.
Yeah, this team shoots a lot of threes, and they weren't very good from the perimeter last night. And you mentioned James Harden being 0 for 11. Chris Paul was 0 for from the field in the first half, but being able to come back in the second half, he was 6 for 12. I think he figured out that if they're not knocking down shots, they're going to have to be aggressive and try to drive the ball, get into the paint, and be able to dictate to the Golden State Warriors, get to the foul line, get some easy shots. And you heard Steve Kerr talk about it after the game. Defensively, they weren't very good. There was a lot of reaching going on. They put Eric Gordon to the line 10 times during the course of the game. James Harden had 9 free throws. I think correct me if I'm wrong, Trey, but the Houston Rockets made more free throws than the Golden State Warriors attempted. Yeah. So, I mean, when you have that type of situation where they're getting those opportunities, that's how you're able to overcome a poor shooting performance, shooting 37% from the field as a team. So I think that's the one thing that they figured out in the second half. Drive the ball, be aggressive, take the fight to the Golden State Warriors defensively. And if you're not knocking down shots, it just makes sense to try to get to the free throw line as much as possible.
And again, they're doing this without their best player out there doing much of anything on the offensive side. Again, James Harden last night, 0 for 11 from 3. He's missed his last 23s. And our own Tim McMahon was asked Harden basically about his three-point shooting, and it led to an interesting exchange.
James, obviously you're not shooting the three ball the way you usually do. Is there anything?
I'm not.
I'm being kind. Anything you feel?
Who cares? Nah.
Nothing mechanical or anything?
Nothing. I'm just missing shots. But we're winning, and I'm trying to compete on the defensive end and do other things to, help my team win. But if we got a guy like Eric Gordon making shots, and being aggressive, who cares?
Can they? Well, listen, they can't do this at Oracle if he's going to shoot like that.
No.
Can't.
And they can't win at Oracle without Chris Paul either.
Right. So here's the question. But that leads to a really interesting question, okay? From playing football, hamstrings, man, they can go at any time. And once it starts, you tweak it again, and it's just going to linger. It lingers. It lingers forever. So if you're Mike D'Antoni, do you say, hey, man, sit this one out? Because if it gets to Game 7, we need whatever the best of you is going to be. So let's not even think about playing you in Game 6 because, look, it's going to be an uphill slog for us. We won there the last time we were there, but obviously we know how strong they've been. 16 straight home playoff games that the Golden State Warriors had won. So from a strategic purpose, do you try and take whatever Chris Paul has and get anything you can out of him in Game 6 to see if you can close this team out at their home building and not give them a chance at Game 7? Or is it a wiser strategy to say, look, I love you. You're my guy, but we need you to be at our best when we're back in our building in Game 7 because we fought all season long. Their GM, Daryl Morey, had said all along, hey, man, we are obsessed with finding ways to beat the Golden State Warriors. That's why you got the number 1 record in the NBA. That's why you got home court advantage. So you could play these guys on your floor at Game 7. So if you're the Rockets, what's a better strategic response to Game 6? Getting whatever you can and risking potentially him not being very effective in Game 7, which he might not be anyway because of the hamstring, or shutting him down for Game 6 and saying, sit this one out, and whatever we have to get to the NBA Finals, let's go all in for Game 7.
I think you err on the side of caution with the injury for Chris Paul.
I think you're right.
Because if he's not 100%, if he can't do the things that we know Chris Paul for, which is being able to distribute the basketball, being able to take the fight to the defense, to penetrate, open up other opportunities for other players, then it's not going to be effective. So I think he becomes more of a liability on the floor if he's not 100%. So I think you take the smart approach. You rest him in Game 6. You realize that you do have Game 7 in your building, and hopefully you buy time and give him a chance to come back and be at full strength because it's going to take that to eliminate the Golden State Warriors from the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be, whoa, you got him down. You got him on the ropes. As Mike Golic said, it's really like Rocky IV right now.
Look at that. He bleeds. He's human.
Basically, I'm talking about Ivan Drago.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's not a machine. He's a man.
Exactly. The Golden State Warriors now look like human beings. They don't look like this Uber team that has descended from, Asgard and come down here just to dominate everything. They don't look like they have Thor's hammer anymore, or they don't look like they have the gauntlet with the Infinity Stones in it. So
they don't look like the Death lineup.
Correct.
And that's what they like.
They
to
look
call
more like the Hamptons lineup. My God, we're just going to sit on the porch. So there is a theory. Hey, they're down. Knock them out. But if you knock one of your two best players out in the process to not be there for Game 7, I'm not sure that's the wisest play here.
And that's why you have to question what Mike D'Antoni did over the last couple of games, because although they were wins, those 7 guys were playing a ton of minutes. So you didn't have the depth coming off the bench. You didn't have the rotation. So now you're going to have to lean on guys that haven't played a whole lot of ball in this series. What are they going to look like when they get out there for Game 6?
Yeah.
That's my only question. I think everybody's anticipating the best shot from the Golden State Warriors because their backs are up against the wall. But when you get to a Game 7 situation, what's the complexion going to look like because you're dealing with this Chris Paul injury?
What's the pucker factor going to be in Game 7?
We haven't done it before, Trey.
We haven't been there. Haven't done that. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Chris Canty of Humpty and Candy on ESPN New York 98.7 FM in for Golic today. So the Warriors are in a position they haven't been in since Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals, an elimination game. However, as bad as it may seem, and with some banged-up players and people not really shooting, Steve Kerr remains extremely confident.
I feel great about where we are right now. And that may sound crazy, but I feel it. I know exactly what I'm seeing out there, and we defended them beautifully tonight. We got everything we needed. Just too many turnovers, too many reaches. And if we settle down a little bit, we're going to be in really good shape.
So just how good of a shape are they in?
I think they did improve on some things that we thought were issues in Game 4, but the last sequence of plays after the Ariza missed free throw is a situation that bothers me because this is a team that should know what to do when they're in those situations. When Draymond Green gets that rebound, he's got to know, I can't pass the ball. I've got to call timeout immediately. Now, I know he was off balance a little bit, but you've got to get a timeout so you can advance the ball to the half court and then try to get a set play on the inbounds from there. Give yourself a better opportunity. Instead, they got it to Steph, and then Steph pushed it up the floor, and Draymond got ahead of himself trying to make a play. They had the 3-on-2 fast break, and you saw that they didn't execute in that situation. The Golden State Warriors have been there, and they've done that, but the positive or the thing that you would give them the edge with is experience, but you don't think a team with that kind of experience would make that kind of mistake in that situation.
And we'll find out what the response will be. Game 6, an elimination game at Oracle Saturday night between the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets. The Rockets could advance to the NBA Finals for the first time since they had those back-to-back championships in the 90s in the Michael Jordan playing baseball era of the NBA. Meanwhile, it's Game 6 tonight, which could be the elimination game for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you can hear it on ESPN Radio and also on ESPN Television. By the way, Brett, we have some information on multiple Game 7s won and multiple Game 7s won by the road team.
Yeah, we do. So the last time multiple road teams won a Game 7 in an entire postseason overall was 2005. So it doesn't happen very much.
Yeah.
There have been multiple Game 7s in a playoffs 39 times. There have been multiple road teams to win Game 7 in a playoffs 3 times out of 39.
And that's what you're predicting, just so you know.
Doesn't make me feel great about my prediction, but again,
stand with it. Hey, you know what you need to do right now? You need to channel your inner Stephen A.
H-Town, stand up.
C-Man, stand up to that prediction. Stand up. Let's go.
I'm not doing the cover 3 backpedal. All I'm simply saying is with the odds, I'm not feeling too confident in my prediction, but I can't back off of it because I'm riding with the 2 best players in the world.
There you go. Come on, sell it, baby.
There it is.
Sell it, baby.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, but we're delighted to be joined in studio by our NFL reporter, Jeff Darlington, # Florida Man, joins us in studio giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. So there's a couple of things I need to get to. You know how we cut sound bites together to make it sound interesting and enticing?
You did it.
Well, we did it just there, and there was a line for me that said, I think it's insane and ridiculous. Which, by the way, was not in relation to the policy that was voted on. I want to be clear about that. That was a line I said when they were talking about putting a 15-yard penalty on the team if someone protested during the national anthem.
Dude, don't let context get in the way of a good
I just want to make sure we get things straight around here, all right? So that was not in relation to the policy that was enacted. I think that was insane and ridiculous that you're going to penalize somebody during a game for something that had nothing to do with the game being played.
That's right.
That being put out there, not really a big fan of how they did this anyway. So, Jeff, you've been gauging reaction, and we have a couple of sound bites we'll play, but what have you heard from the players specifically about the idea that it's now set up like this? Hey, you're either on the field and you're doing great, or you're in the locker room, which you are branded with a scarlet letter.
Well, Trey, I do want to point something out. There are players that I've spoken to who are happy to see this enacted.
I'm sure there are.
It's not as if this is just like unanimous, like this is ridiculous. But the funny thing about that is whatever side you're on of the opinion, and I talked to a number of players who are on both sides, everyone seems to still say, man, the NFL didn't really handle this that great.
No.
And
right?
I
That's
think
it. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
That's the one thing that's bringing this camaraderie together, this group together, is saying, man, that felt a little clumsy. Now, the one counter argument I would give to that is we're going to obviously now go through another cycle of this drama, right? They stoked the fire once again. Now players are going to say, we'll find another way. So inevitably, in weeks 1 through 4, we're going to be talking about this once again. Once the first fine comes down, once the first player tries to push the envelope a little bit more. Then, though, is it finally going to be something that this policy causes for it to all eventually drift into the background? Will this ultimately be the means to the end? That's the one wonder that I have about what the NFL has done. They weren't going to win, Trey. They weren't going to win.
There was no way for them
There was no way for them
But maybe this is a means to an end, even if you're going to have more drama before it's over.
Well, here's what Roger Goodell said when they came up with the new policy yesterday. He said that we want to put the focus back on football, but it feels like this directly contradicts that because we're going to be talking about it. And players are split in terms of how they feel with the NFL unilaterally imposing this. I guess I look at it as it can't be the right thing to do if you don't have a real dialogue, a real conversation with the players before you have this new anthem policy, which you're asking them to adhere to.
That's right. And to come out afterward and try to imply that, this was a decision that was made collectively based on everybody's opinions. Like, it just feels like there's hedging. If you're going to be the bad guy and you're going to say, we're going to make this rule, just come out and say it. Like, hey, here's the deal. Follow the rule. Get in line. Let's go.
But when you start talking about a rule change, Trey, and we got into this a little bit yesterday, if something of this magnitude, why would you not have a formal vote?
Well,
that's the one thing that I don't understand.
There's a million things that are sort of weird here. Is NFL reporter Jeff Darlington in studio with us here on Golic and Wingo. We can get into sort of they stuck their toe in the water instead of either staying out of the water or diving in head first with the anthem policy. That's a separate discussion. But the idea that they said it was a unanimous vote when they didn't actually vote.
That's right.
I mean, this is according to sources from Seth Wickersham. The NFL did not take a formal roll call vote when it passed its new national anthem. League spokesman Brian McCarthy confirmed that. Instead, the league called for a show of owners' hands to test support of the new policy. an unofficial process that's often used, there were 0 nays, he said. That wasn't considered a vote. So it wasn't considered a vote, and now we find that at least 2 owners said they abstained from the process. How can you come out there in front of everybody and say, well, we did this unanimously?
This is where it gets clumsy. I believe my philosophy on this is that Roger Goodell's job in general is to protect the owners.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm. He takes the heat for them. He's the bad guy. He's the one.
He's the shield.
Yes.
So he was trying
Literally
to take
a human shield.
Exactly it.
He's trying to take the heat for 32 owners on this, whichever way they're going to go, to try to keep them from having to go out on the ledge with their locker rooms, with their players. But in the process, I mean, you got to know that there's going to be owners like Chris Johnson who are going to come out and ultimately say, hey, look, I'm going to protect my guys here. I'm going to, or Jed York saying we're going to abstain from this vote. So I think while trying to protect them, he also forgot about the fact that there's going to be guys saying, well, wait a second. Just because I didn't say yes, it doesn't mean that I really wanted this.
Right.
But I don't know, man. It just feels clumsy is all.
It does. And again, as Jeff Darlington is here with us, we'll get in some reaction from some of the players a little bit later. Mm-hmm. And if you can stick around for a little while, we'd love to have a little more discussion because some other things I want to talk to you about.
Go, Trey.
There you go. Welcome to my life. The other thing that I'm having a hard time with this is this whole protest process had really died down.
That's right.
At the end of the year, it had really become a non-issue. I mean, even Eric Reed going around had said, "Look, I'm not gonna do that anymore. He wants to play. I'm not gonna do this anymore." It had sort of dissipated, and that leads us to this question: if you now are no longer allowed to kneel, are no longer allowed to kneel. Doesn't that take away the stigma of signing an Eric Reed or a Colin Kaepernick? Because the idea of how offensive that was site-wise to see that happening, well, that's not going to happen anymore. Now, there may be some players that stay in the locker room. And again, it's important to stress to people that before 2009, almost always players were in the locker room for the national anthem.
But you're crazy if you think that that's the reason why Colin Kaepernick's not on a team. Like, it's not because...
I'm not saying
it's not merely because of the aesthetic of him kneeling on the sideline. It's all of the things that he is saying. I mean, look, it's obvious that people are afraid of the distraction of Colin Kaepernick. As much as they are about the idea of the picture of him on the sideline. Like, is it not clear to everyone at this point that general managers are just seemingly afraid to bring a guy on who is going to be so polarizing in his locker room? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm just saying that this is not just about kneeling when it comes to Eric Reed and Colin Kaepernick.
No, you're right, Jeff. And Colin Kaepernick is the face of this movement when it comes to the protest during the national anthem. So even though he might not be out on the sidelines taking a knee during the national anthem if a team signs him, he's going to be the optics of the situation whenever a club decides to go that direction, or if a club decides to go to that direction. There are going to be questions for everybody that's associated with that organization. And I think that that's something that's tough for NFL teams.
I don't want to diminish what Colin Kaepernick is doing with this analogy, but when Tim Tebow couldn't get on an NFL roster for a minute there, it was because there's 32 general managers trying to make a living for their families, right?
Right.
So when they each individually, not collectively, have a decision to make about their backup quarterback, they look at it and say, well, I could go get this guy this is not going to be even a headline for my team.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about the other 31 teams. So it's the same thing with Colin, in my opinion. There's these general managers saying, oh, man, that's going to cause some problems for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go do that.
So why do I need to go down that road? You're going to stick with us, right?
Sure.
Okay, by the way, ESPN Deportes will be the Spanish-language home of the UEFA Championships League final Saturday, May 26, 2:20 Eastern, 11:20 Pacific. Real Madrid trying to win its third straight. Liverpool trying to take that away from them. Champions League final, May 26, live and in Spanish on ESPN Deportes and the ESPN app.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We continue with Florida Man, our ESPN NFL reporter Jeff Darlington. Couple of things we want to get to. Number one, because of this anthem policy that they've established and created and changed and whatever, whatever assignment you are week 1, what's the one thing you know you have to do?
I mean, there's no question you're checking the sidelines. And when reporters go out to training camp for practice on the first day of training camp, you get the roster out and you check off each number to make sure that everybody's out there.
Right.
Every reporter in that press box or on the sideline is going to be doing the exact same thing. Now, if you're a player, likely, by the way, you're not protesting to be quiet.
Yeah.
So if you're a player who's going to stay in the locker room, you're probably going to put out a statement beforehand to say, hey, you don't see me out there because I'm kneeling in the locker room instead because I would like to bring attention to the social injustices within our country.
Yeah, Jeff, we talked a little bit about this during the break. The NFL league office did a survey that they hired the Glover Park Group, which is actually co-founded by one of their former communications director, Joe Lockhart. They wanted to see what fans' reaction would be on a team potentially signing Colin Kaepernick, as well as the disciplining of players and what that should be for not standing for the national anthem. What do you make of the NFL hiring a consulting firm to find that information out?
Yeah, like there's federal law and state law. Like that should just be state law. Like it should just be up to the team to decide whether their fan base is, honestly, shouldn't even matter. General managers should make decisions with their own convictions.
Well, that's a whole separate discussion of
that's right.
this waffling policy that we have now.
That's right. But to that degree, though, I don't think that the NFL necessarily should be dipping their toe in the water when instead it's the teams that should ultimately decide whether they should bring a player on or not.
Yeah, because you think they're operating independently. That's what it's supposed to be. Otherwise, it's considered collusion. And that's what Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed are filing that lawsuit against the NFL and the clubs for that. So, I mean, I look at this situation and I'm saying to myself, the NFL really wanted to see which way the wind was blowing on this deal and then decide exactly what they should do. And this anthem policy is their response to the information that they gather.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you talk about something that is a polarizing debate, whether someone agrees with it, whether the masses agree with something or not, doesn't also indicate whether it's right or wrong, right? Like, I mean, we can all agree that racism is wrong, even if there's a bunch of racists out there. So, like, I do believe that this is something where public opinion, while important because it is about the bottom line for the NFL, should still be countered with what is right and what is wrong. And I think that's ultimately the part that the NFL is trying to navigate, perhaps clumsily.
Jeff Darlington, our NFL reporter, with us in studio on Golic and Wingo. Chris Canny in for Mike Golic. So I want to talk real quickly because we don't have a ton of time left, but you were very passionate yesterday on NFL Live talking about Richie Incognito, who has obviously been a very polarizing figure in the NFL. He unretired and then he retired again, and he's now under psychiatric care for throwing a weight at somebody at a Florida gym. You've known him very well for all his time in Miami, and you really got a little bit emotional and choked up talking about Richie on NFL Live yesterday. Tell us a little bit about your experiences with him.
Yeah, well, first of all, I've known Richie for a very long time. Not only do I roll, not only is he an NFL person who I've covered, but we have mutual friends outside of the game that have kind of brought us together. So I know him really well, and I know I understand why he is polarizing. I get all that. I think a tough part for me right now with this is that, and I'm not trying to be oversensitive or like be judgmental of people who laugh at this, because I understand there is some element of that when you don't know a person. I just think like for instance, when someone tears their ACL or when someone hurts their leg and they're limping, you know that they're hurt, right? Like whether it's their ACL, whether it's their Achilles, whether it's their hamstring, something is wrong.
You can see it.
Yes. You can see it. Mental illness, when it's not as easy to talk about. It's like, it's almost taboo for me to even sit here, and it's uncomfortable for me to suggest that Richie Incognito, without him saying it himself, is dealing with mental illness.
Although he's admitted that in the past.
He has, and we've talked a lot about it.
You know, he went ballistic on that car in Arizona, and I actually ran into him in Hawaii when it all went down with the bullying scale that year with the scandal with Jonathan Martin. And you could tell he was trying to process. I'm not excusing anything Richie's done. I'm not excusing anything Jonathan Martin may have done or posted, but I think these two together are showing us just how difficult it is to navigate this idea of mental health.
Mental illness goes, and this is the point that I try to make, is mental illness is on both spectrums. Yeah. When it comes to depression, it's easy for us to be sympathetic. When it comes to aggression, it is not.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be held accountable for their own actions, but I would say that right now with Richie Incognito, it is important for all of us to have some sympathy as he goes through a very difficult process. I pray to God that he gets the help he needs so that he can get through this.
Jeff, we appreciate that. We'll see what happens going forward. Obviously a very difficult situation, but your reaction was so real yesterday. I just wanted to have you share that with us today.
Appreciate it.
All right, coming up, what happened to the tetralogy we all expected? Wait, what? Did Brett write the T's? Plus, a former NFL star that's taken a very interesting turn. Brett, you're killing us.
I was just going to make